My name is Steve. Welcome to my shop. This video is going to be a little different. My friend Chuck Bomarito of Outside Screwball recently posted a video on his shop-made tools. And then Mike of Rustanox did one similar and started the hashtag shop-made tools. So in this video I'm going to show you some of my shop-made tools, from the earliest ones that I made to some very simple ones and some more complicated tools that I have put together. I've got a lot to cover, so let's get started. I'm going to reposition the camera over here at the workbench so that we can get some close-ups of these, and I'll bring you back when we're all set and ready to go. When I was 14, for Christmas, I got this Craftsman floor-mounted drill press, and I've still got it to this day. So what you need with a drill press is a drill press vise. So my first official metalworking project was to build a drill press vise to use on my drill press. So this is the drill press vise that I made when I was around 14 years old, and absolutely my first metalworking project. And this was made with my new drill press, obviously, a hacksaw and a file. And it's actually the project that I worked on to learn and practice my filing skills. It's made of cold rolled steel. It was 1/2-inch steel, and I cut the whole thing out, let's say by hand with a hacksaw. I'll be the first to admit it's probably not the greatest job in the world, but considering what I had to work with and my age at the time, I'm pretty happy with it, and I still use it on occasion to this day. Every once in a while it's the right tool for the job. While I was in high school, I decided that I wanted to be an industrial arts teacher, and so in addition to my college prep classes, I also had to take the industrial arts classes. One of the first ones that I took was metal shop, and this is a project that I worked on in my metal shop class, and it's a pair of V-blocks. They're just made out of cold rolled steel. Probably it's the first job that I ever did on a milling machine. And I also made this clamp for it, which I milled on a flat. You have to think of this being straight out. I milled it as a flat bar, and then I heated it up and forged it into shape, and it actually works pretty good. It fits, and I still use these to this day. I heat blued them. They've got a little bit of surface rust on them, but not bad considering the fact that they are over 50 years old. I have mentioned before, but my grandfather was a tool and die maker, and when I was about 18, I got his toolbox from him. Unfortunately, he passed away not long after that, much too young. I think he was 59 years old when he passed away. I might be wrong by a year or two on that, but much too young. I wish I had more chance to talk to him and learn more from him while he was still alive. But one of the things that he had in his toolbox were these die holders. This is one that he made, and he had a bunch of these. He used them all the time. So one of my first lathe projects was to make a die holder, and this was my first attempt at a die holder, probably one of my very earliest lathe projects. No doubt maybe still a teen when I did this. When I first started getting interested in the machining, my grandfather bought me this dial test indicator set. I don't know what manufacturer it is. It's not important. It is made in Germany. It's a very nice set, and I've been using it for years. But when I first started setting it up, I realized that I needed an additional snug for it. So one of my very early projects was to make an additional snug for the dial indicator, the dial test indicator set. So this is one of my real early projects. Probably the first knurling projects that I ever did. I'm going to move forward a little bit, few years, and I don't remember exactly when it was, but several years ago I bought an Atlas 618 lathe. When I first started doing metalwork in my shop, I had purchased a 9-inch Atlas lathe, and for some unknown reason I sold it to one of my customers one day, and I regretted it before it even left my garage. But so several years later I got an opportunity to pick up this little 6-inch Atlas lathe, and this is a thread protector. Probably it's one of the first projects that I ever did on that lathe, and it's made out of a piece of stainless steel and internal threads. There may even be a video on this. I will leave videos to any of the tool making projects that I have on videos. I'll put a link in the description for them in case you're interested. When I had my automotive machine shop, I always had a brass hammer, and unfortunately they got beat up pretty bad, and the last one that I had didn't survive too long. Actually, the head is still around. It had one of those composite plastic handles that absolutely disintegrated, and I took and put a piece of steel in it, and I still actually have it in one of my toolboxes. I think I have it over at the museum in the toolbox that I use over there. But I decided I needed a brass hammer in the shop, and I went on eBay and I purchased this, and it wasn't a bad price, but as soon as I got it, I said, you know something, that's ridiculous. You can make them. Enter my shop-made brass hammers. And I have probably made close to 20 of these over the years. I've given them out as giveaways on my channel when I've reached different milestones. I gave away a bunch of them at the Summer Bash. I had made a batch of them for that. And I've given them, my sons both have them, and friends have them. But it's made, they're a 16-ounce hammer. It's made with 1¼ brass stock. I just turn them on the lathe, put a couple of decorative grooves in them, and then install the handle. Here's one that's ready for the next giveaway. There's a new one that I haven't found a home for yet, but just a fun little project, and I do have a video on this. I'll leave a link. Several years ago, I picked up this tap handle at a flea market. I think I paid $5 for it or something like that. It appears to be shop made, and I really liked the design of it, and I wasn't quite sure why until I got a Starrett, and it is built very similar to the Starrett. It's really a knockoff of the Starrett. And I decided I wanted to make some of my own. So here is my version of it. And I made about a half a dozen of these, and I forget how many of them. I think 3 or 4 of them went to Keith Fenner for his What's in Your Box giveaway. The last year that he did that, I sent him these tap handles, and I sent him hammers to put in the What's in Your Box giveaway. Those of you that follow me know that I recently purchased a Sheldon horizontal mill. I have not gotten it into the shop yet, but I'm getting a lot closer. I've had to do some rearranging, and I'm almost there. But it had a different size T-nut in it. And so one of my more recent projects was to make an assortment of T-nuts for that mill. 2 of them, you can see, these were heat blued, and then the balance of them were chemical blackened and then treated with oil. As with most projects, there's a story, and this is a Squareness comparator that I built, and this was my design. Steve Barton of Solid Rock Machine and I were both kind of developing our Squareness comparators at the same time, and we kind of went 2 different directions on the design of them. But since mine was going to be a one-off, I wasn't too concerned about it. But the history of this piece of steel that's in the base was actually a piece of about 1 by 4 by about 6 inches long that I had actually started a project back in my very early years of metalworking. It was actually a piece that I was working on while my grandfather was still alive, because I cut it with a hacksaw into this rough shape, and then he took it to work with him one day and surface ground it for me. So when I decided to build this Squareness comparator, I went and I got out that piece of material and I cut it up, and this is about, in volume, about half of the material, but this actually means something to me. Not that a piece of steel can mean much, but it has a history. So I milled this. It's just probably cold roll steel. Put a flexure on it, and you can adjust it. I've got a Noga arm on it, with a Mitutoyo tenths indicator. And I use that not only for checking heights, comparing gauge block stacks to material heights. It's used on the surface plate, and I have a complete series of videos on the making and the use of this. I'm pretty happy with it. It's all been surface ground, and it works just great. This is probably one of the largest projects that I have done in my home shop. And several years ago, when I first started getting involved with and making my YouTube videos, Emma from Emma's Spare Room Machine Shop was running a tool making competition, and this was my first entry into one of her tool making competitions. I had this tool holder that I purchased. It was called I don't remember. It was called AZ something. And it was okay. I got it for my 6-inch Atlas lathe. But it was all aluminum. And I always felt that it wasn't quite rigid enough. So I decided to build it all out of steel. And so this is an entire set built of steel. I didn't use any of the parts from the old tool post. Matter of fact, I actually gave it away to somebody else, one of my viewers. And it's all made of primarily cold roll steel. And I made, these are the tool holders that I made. I've got 8 or 9 of the conventional tool holders. I made them so that they'll fit a 1/2-inch tool bit, although these are all 3/8 in there now. Here's one for a 1/2-inch boring bar, and I also made an arbor for this Jacob's chuck that will fit in that, and I use that for drilling, deep hole drilling on the Atlas lathe. Matter of fact, it's one of the more popular ongoing videos that I've got on the channel, deep hole drilling on a small lathe. And I'll leave a link to that in the description also. I said it doubles for a 1/2-inch boring bar also, and then I built one for a 3/8 boring bar. And I still use it to this day on the 6-inch lathe. This is one of my later projects, and it is a die holder to use on the lathe. It's made for 1-inch die on one end. The other end is a 3/4-inch die, and it slides on this piece of 1/2-inch drill rod, which I can mount in a chuck on my lathe. And I use it primarily for very small dies. I do a lot of miniature screws and so on, and I thread. It's not unusual for me to even thread number 1 screws, so this works out real well. Up to this point, I haven't put any holes in it for a Tommy bar. I haven't needed it. The knurl has been enough for me to hold and thread most of what I've been able to, most of my threading needs. There again, this is a more recent piece. I now have a 10-inch Atlas lathe, and I made this holder to mount dial indicator on it so that it would use it for the Z travel. It's a 2-inch indicator, and the reason that it's so large is that it gives me the clearance to be able to make sure that this end of the dial indicator clears the quick change gearbox. So this is one of my latest projects. Okay, this is one of my more recent projects, and it is a grinding fixture for my surface grinder for beveling the edges of steel. You mount it on the surface grinder with the wheel extending down in front of the gap. Here you can see that, and you can adjust the width of it by moving your wheel in and out, and then you run your steel across. You're actually side wheeling and taking a bevel across there, and that works out very well. This is another project that I've put together for my surface grinder, and this is for balancing the grinding wheels. I turned an arbor that will fit on the hubs for the stones will fit on this arbor. As it turns out, it ended up not needing the threads, but they're on there just in case. And this is made of 1/2 inch aluminum, and what I did is I grooved out the top edge of it, and these are pieces of drill rod that are actually super glued into the groove that I made on it, and they're perfectly parallel to each other. And there are 3 set screws in here that I can use to level this up. So I make it perfectly level, and then I can mount the wheel in it. This is what it looks like with the wheel in it. This wheel actually needs to be balanced, but this isn't level on here. It's pretty good. I'm actually, one of the more popular videos that I have is balancing the grinding wheels, and I'm not real happy with the whole process that I've been using to balance them. So I'm going to be doing a new balancing video in the not too distant future. This is my most recent tool build, and it's my tapping reaming fixture. It's made so that this beam, the arm, can slide up and down, and I can turn the hand wheel. For tapping, there's a nylon set screw in here so that I can hold tension on it. This is actually the last video that I have posted. I'm a little disappointed with the fit on this, so in the not too distant future I'm going to be remachining the 3/8 square and putting a new, stronger, larger detent ball in it to solve that problem. Well, that's going to wrap up this video of my shop-made tools. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have enjoyed going through them and kind of going down memory lane on the stories and the backstories on some of these tools and how they were made. If you enjoy the content on this channel, please make sure you subscribe and then click on the bell so that you get the notifications as I post new videos. I try and put up a video a week. It's not always on schedule, but I do my best. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.